He cut his wife into pieces on stage. What happened next shocked the entire world. The blade glinted under the stage lights as Professor Peller raised it high above his wife's body. The crowd at City Hall in Ibadan held their breath. No one could have predicted what would happen in the next 60 minutes, a tragedy that would shake Nigeria to its core. But to understand how this moment came to be, we must go back to where it all started, in a small town called Iseyin. Moshood Abiola Peller was unlike any other child in Iseyin. His light complexion and shock of albino hair made him stand out instantly among his peers. The other children called him Moshood the Albino Hair, a nickname that followed him everywhere he went. He was a quiet boy, studious enough, attending the local primary school where he blended into the background despite his distinctive appearance. Nothing about young Moshood suggested he was anything other than ordinary, until the day everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon and school had just let out. Moshood and 5 of his friends, Tunde, Whale, Bisi, Femi, and Ayo, decided to take a detour through the forest on their way home. The forest was a treasure trove of wild fruits, cherries, oranges, and sometimes even mangoes if you knew where to look. The boys laughed and joked as they ventured deeper into the trees, their school bags bouncing on their backs. "Moshood, climb that tree and get us some cherries," Tunde shouted, pointing to a particularly tall tree laden with ripe fruit. Moshood grinned and started climbing. He was halfway up when the wind began to change. At first it was just a gentle breeze rustling the leaves, but within seconds it transformed into something else entirely, a massive whirlwind that seemed to come from nowhere. The sky darkened. Leaves and branches swirled violently in the air. "Moshood!" Bisi screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the roaring wind. The boys tried to shield their faces from the debris flying through the air. When the wind finally died down, just as suddenly as it had appeared, they opened their eyes and looked around frantically. Moshood was gone. "Where is he?" Whale shouted, spinning in circles. "Moshood! Moshood!" They searched the immediate area, calling his name over and over. The tree he had been climbing stood still and silent, as if nothing had happened. Panic set in. The 5 friends ran back to the village as fast as their legs could carry them, their hearts pounding with fear. They burst into Moshood's family compound, breathless and terrified. "Mama Moshood! Mama Moshood!" they called out. Moshood's mother emerged from the house, her face brightening when she saw the boys, but her smile faded instantly when she noticed her son was not among them. "Where is Moshood?" she asked, her voice already trembling. Tunde stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. "Mama, we went to the forest to get fruits. There was a big wind, like nothing we've ever seen. It came so fast, and when it stopped, Moshood was gone. We looked everywhere." The bowl Moshood's mother had been holding slipped from her hands and shattered on the ground. She let out a wail that brought neighbors running from all directions. Within minutes, the entire compound was filled with people. Search parties were organized immediately. Men grabbed torches and machetes and headed into the forest. They searched through the night, calling Moshood's name until their voices grew hoarse. The first day passed with no sign of him. The second day brought no news. By the third day, the village had begun to lose hope. Some whispered that evil spirits had taken the boy. Others suggested he had been attacked by a wild animal. Moshood's mother refused to eat or sleep, keeping vigil by her window, praying for her son's return. Then, at exactly 1 a.m. on the 4th day, she heard it, a soft knock on the door. Her eyes flew open. She had been dozing in her chair by the window, exhausted from days of anguish. The knock came again, gentle but persistent. She rushed to the window and peered out into the darkness. There, standing at her door, was Moshood. She nearly fainted from shock and relief. She fumbled with the locks, her hands shaking so badly she could barely open the door. When she finally got it open, she pulled her son into her arms and held him so tightly he gasped for air. "Moshood! Moshood! Where have you been? What happened to you? I thought you were dead," she cried, tears streaming down her face. Moshood looked at her with a strange calmness that seemed unusual for a child who had been missing for 3 days. "Mama, I'm fine," he said softly. "Fine? You've been gone for 3 days. 3 days. Where were you?" Moshood furrowed his brow as if trying to remember something that kept slipping away. I don't know, Mama. I can't remember." "You can't remember? What do you mean you can't remember? Were you hurt? Did someone take you?" "I'm not hurt, Mama. I'm okay. I'm not even hungry." His mother pulled back and examined him from head to toe. He was right. There wasn't a scratch on him. His clothes were clean, not torn or dirty as they should have been if he'd been lost in the forest for 3 days. It was as if he had simply stepped out for a moment and returned. "You must eat something," she insisted. "You haven't eaten in days." "No, Mama, truly, I'm satisfied. I'm okay." By morning, news of Moshood's return had spread through the village like wildfire. People crowded into the family compound, eager to see the boy who had returned from the dead, as some were calling it. Everyone wanted to know what had happened. An elder of the village, Baba Sool, pushed his way through the crowd and knelt down to speak to Moshood face to face. "My son, tell us what you remember, anything at all. Did you see who took you?" Moshood's eyes seemed to focus on something far away. "It was a man," he said simply. The crowd murmured. "What man? What did he look like?" Baba Sool pressed. Moshood stood up and walked to the edge of the compound. He pointed toward the forest. "That man. There." Everyone turned to look where he was pointing. There was nothing there, just trees and empty space. "I don't see anyone," Baba Sool said gently. "There's no one there, my son." "But he's right there," Moshood insisted, still pointing. The adults exchanged worried glances. Some made protective gestures, whispering prayers under their breath. Whatever had happened to this boy in those 3 days, it had changed something in him. The next morning, Moshood's mother woke early to prepare him for school. Life had to return to normal, she told herself, even if nothing felt normal anymore. She prepared pap, a smooth corn porridge, and bean cakes, Moshood's usual breakfast before school. She called him to the table. "Come, my son, eat before you go to school." Moshood looked at the food and shook his head. "I don't want pop today, Mama. I want rice." His mother sighed. "Moshood, you know we don't have rice. I didn't cook rice. Eat your pap and bean cake." "Please, Mama, I really want rice." "Where am I supposed to get rice from at this hour?" she asked, exasperated. "Eat what I've prepared for you." Moshood stood up calmly. "Mama, do you have 2 bowls?" She frowned at the strange question. "Yes, of course I have bowls. Why?" "Can you bring me 2 bowls, please?" Still confused but humoring him, she retrieved 2 metal bowls from her kitchen and handed them to him. Moshood took them and placed one on the table. Then he put the second bowl on top of it, creating a covered container. "Moshood, what are you doing?" his mother asked, a hint of worry creeping into her voice. The boy placed his small hands on top of the upper bowl and closed his eyes. He stood perfectly still for a moment. Then without a word, he lifted the top bowl. Steam erupted from the bottom bowl, hot, fragrant steam that carried the unmistakable aroma of freshly cooked jollof rice. Moshood's mother stumbled backward, her hand flying to her mouth. Inside the bowl was a mound of perfectly cooked rice, still steaming hot, garnished with vegetables and pieces of chicken. Moshood, what? She couldn't form a complete sentence. Now I can eat, Mama, Moshood said with a smile, picking up a spoon. His mother's mind raced. This was impossible, completely impossible. She wanted to scream, to run, to call for help, but something stopped her. This was her son, her Moshood, and somehow he had just made food appear out of thin air. Eat, Mama, Moshood said, pushing the bowl toward her. There's enough for both of us. She was about to respond when she noticed a movement at the window. Her heart jumped. Someone had been watching. A face quickly disappeared from view. She heard footsteps hurrying away from the house. If you're enjoying the story, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. This is where things get truly unbelievable.